Okay, everybody, we are back with Spirit Chats.
Yay. All right. So we're going to talk about, I guess, a little bit about remote viewing and claircognizance. Yeah. How do we want to open this up? Did you have any
Well,
questions about it, or what you want to say how you feel about it or anything?
I think it would be good to, because I still have, not confusion, I shouldn't say that, but like I have studied remote viewing through Gerald O'Donnell. I know there's more protocols, there's a lot more kinds of schools of thought around it. And no matter what I do, I can't conform, even though I do think it works and it's really powerful, I still just like freelance it. Like the way I do things, like psychic work, energy readings versus remote viewing. And I think it'd be good to clear that up for the viewers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've done some very serious training in remote viewing. So I've done the military kind, the official, what remote viewing is, what most people know of it to be. And that is the military version, which is CRV, which is controlled remote viewing. And my teacher was Lori Williams. So Lori Williams works with Lynn Buchanan. So he's one of the first guys who did it. Like he's in some of the books about remote viewing. So and remote viewing is really hard to do, actually. In the sense of, so what you're doing is first you learn how to do ideograms. I almost said enneagrams, completely different thing. Ideograms. And so that's like learning, like just you're using your pen and you're learning to draw what a piece of land looks like a symbol for land or a symbol for air or a symbol for, what do they call it? Like a human being. So a biological or natural, like structures, natural structures and non-natural structures, as in earth or dirt. So you have to learn how to do these little ideograms just automatically. So what you're doing, you're allowing yourself to write these ideograms as you hear the target number. So it's a target number. So you have absolutely no idea what you're remote viewing. Sometimes you might get, oh, it's a person, or it's a location, or it's an event. But that's about it. So it could be a million different things. So it is intimidating, like in your, like just mind-wise, learning how to do it, because we have so many obstacles in our brain about, oh my God, can I do that? So as you're learning how to do it, you're learning to move through those obstacles, because it is intimidating. So, and then it's just practice. But so you get the target number and then you allow your hand to just start drawing, and it's going to do an ideogram. Now there are different schools about ideograms, as far as like some people, you just get that energy out and then you draw the ideogram, but then you go back and see what that first image is. And then you start and you put your pen to the thing that you draw. Yeah. And get information from the thing that you drew. And as in, this feels like this, or I feel energy movement, or I feel something big, or I feel something small, I feel something inside, and I feel like there's a structure, and it gets more and more specific as you do it. That is classic remote viewing. And there are many stages to it as you learn how to do it. And at some point you do this feely thing where you just allow your body to move to see what's there. And so some people actually do bilocate when they do remote viewing. So there is a form of, or it could also be called conscious projection. You're projecting your consciousness to the site that you're reading. And I think that John Vivanco, who I studied with, he is really good at doing that type of remote viewing. And he is classically trained and he does teach it. He's a good teacher. There's a lot of where you project out and go to the site. And that's also called ERV, which is another form of remote viewing, which is extended remote viewing. But they tell you that you should do the classic remote viewing or the controlled remote viewing, go through all the stages of that, which are, I think, 3 classes, like beginner, intermediate, advanced. And then you can do the ERV, which is extended remote viewing, which David Morehouse, which I took his course, is about that's where you go into a really relaxed state, listen to some binaural beats, and then leave your body. And then you go there. But the thing that's harder about that to do is that you have to, so when you're doing it, because you're out of your body, there's a projection of consciousness going to the site. It's harder to bring back that information because when you're out like that, you can get like, oh, you can lose the information because you have your projection of consciousness. And being in that, like you usually do it laying down, so it can be harder to actually remember everything and bring it back. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it and different systems, but classic is the controlled remote viewing, which is what Ingo Swann created with
Okay.
the military. And so it's pretty cool. Now, Gerald O'Donnell, who does his Avari system, was a classic remote viewer, and then he created this system from him being a hypnotherapist
Right.
and remote viewer. Combines those two, and a lot of his stuff is around, to me, seems like having done it, it's more like an ERV, which is extended remote viewing, where you go into
Okay.
these trance states and do stuff out there. But his is more not the classic remote viewing is like far as going, I'm going to go to this target and get this information. His is more growing your consciousness, which is,
Right. Yeah.
that's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
He's all about, yeah, you're right. He's a really unique guy, and he's all about getting you to like find your own internal power. And a lot of what and I sent you that Facebook post, a lot of what he's trying to do is get you to, is it to get onto a different timeline where things get better? Is that like the whole idea of like you're jumping and then you're getting into the positive new earth sort of situation? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that you can, well, you can change your reality. And if you go into those states, you can bring healing and you can actually go to a place where you see yourself healed and see how you are healed, or go into the future, go into the past, get tons of information about your life. I'm sure you could go look at other people's lives too if you wanted to, but he's more directed about you doing it for yourself and growing your business.
I can't stay awake. I've never been able to do his meditation without falling asleep half
Yeah.
hour to 75% into it.
Well, that's the hardest part because you're going
Right.
into these deep trance states
Yeah.
and holding your consciousness in those deeper trance states and then doing the work. And
Right.
part of what we do in my classes is like going into like those deeper trance states, hold your consciousness there so that you actually have more consciousness in these higher awareness states. And then you're able to get more information. It's pretty cool. That's training. That is training. But it's
And I
really
know he said it's like a 2 or 3 month, like you have to hit it every day, 2 or 3 months. And yeah.
yeah. Yeah. You have to be consistent.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I also trained with Deborah Katz too, who
I like her.
yeah, I love her as a teacher. She's awesome. Yeah. So I've done a lot of training around it. I don't call myself a remote viewer specifically because I do so many different things that in my little repertoire of stuff. I see myself more as somebody who bilocates through various techniques or projection of consciousness because they're
Yeah.
slightly different. If you ask me, they're slightly different. Yeah. Bilocation to me, if you want to hear what I have to say about that, bilocation is more like you're more fully there. You're still here and you're conscious that you're still here, but there's a part of you that is fully there. Whereas a projection of consciousness is there, it's more subtle.
Mhm.
It's definitely more subtle. Like, so it may feel like you're more like if I wanted to project my consciousness to visit you in your room right now, I could actually do it while I'm thinking about it and talking to you and see what's there. But not that I'm doing that right now. But you could and see
Right.
what's going on. That's more of a projection of consciousness than me like being in a deep trance and then going bilocating and going somewhere. So it's two different things, but you can learn how to do all these things. It's very cool
Yeah.
and fun.
I guess that's not
Exciting.
part of like every, I know that's part of Gerald's work But, like,
Mhm.
remote viewing doesn't really do by location normally, right? Like, that's not
The further you go into remote viewing, you will start to hear people talking about bilocation more frequently. I think
okay.
in the first when you first start, they're not gonna talk about it, or you're not gonna hear about it much because it's not the first part of the training. You have to be into it more before they start bringing that up.
I guess I just always assumed because the little exposure I had to, maybe the CRV training, I was
Mhm.
watching a few videos and watching how they teach it, and they seem to wanna really separate themselves from psychics
Oh,
because
yes.
the way they viewed psychic work was, like, you they're trying to create a system where it's standard and rigid and structured,
Mhm. Yeah,
whereas
because
psychic
it came from the military. That's
right.
why. Yeah.
Where the psychic, it was almost like too willy-nilly, like some of the
Mhm.
person like words or like
Yeah.
images, they didn't want that, right? Because they thought it would throw the data off.
Yeah. Well, that's yeah, they wanna keep it pure. But, Ingo Swann, who helped create it, was an amazing psychic, like, phenomenal, and a psychic. So, I don't yeah, so they're gonna try and separate that, but, it's impossible. I don't
Yeah.
yeah, and some remote viewers are so, like, "That's not true remote viewing," because you had a piece of information about the thing. or or the monitor. The monitor is the person or the tasker. It
Yeah.
wasn't pure information because of the way it was tasked. I mean, people get really crazy about it, so it's funny.
It's like I don't wanna talk negatively about other people doing similar work and things that we do
Uh-huh.
with, like, crypto or whatever thing, but
Right.
I honestly have a hard time with the future forecasts who are really the crypto viewers in the
Mhm.
past. I start to, like, zone out. I can't focus on their findings 'cause I'm like, "What does it mean? Tell me what you mean."
Yeah.
Like
That's really interesting because the problem with viewing is that it's hard to know what you're viewing. Because they don't want to identify. You're not supposed to identify
oh,
what
okay.
you're viewing. So otherwise because then it's called a stray cat or they have another name for it. Because the minute you start identifying your information, it can be wrong. And then you have all of these perceptions about the thing that you're identifying that can come in and taint what you are trying to identify. So it's a conundrum, and that's the problem with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we did a class once where the Chinese the Chinese
Mhm.
spy balloon. So that was our task to remote view that. Now we didn't know it was the Chinese spy balloon. This is the afterwards. So we learned that's what it was. But so when I was doing it, I did really well on that one. It was like, oh, it's this. It looks like this. It looks like a balloon, and it's got something hanging from the bottom, and I see it falling, and it crashes into the water blah blah blah. So I had all the actions and everything. It was probably 90% correct. But the thing is, and this is the frustrating part, I didn't get, oh, it's the Chinese spy balloon because you're not supposed to identify it. Now, sometimes at some point you cannot help but identify it. But
Right.
that's, again, the paradox or the conundrum in it is that you're not supposed to, but sometimes that information will come to you. So there is something frustrating about it. Anyway.
Well, because yeah, you have to do it. Like, I've seen, like, AOL, whatever. I forget what AOL
Yeah,
means.
AOL, that's it. Yes, an AOL, which is like, so that's I'm getting this so an AOL is like, so I'm getting this information, but it's probably wrong, but it keeps coming into my head. So, which is an analytical overlay, which means that
Okay. Yeah.
that's an analytical overlay. So that if you make the assumption, see, they call it's an assumption that you
Mhm.
think it's this, which then you'll get all sorts of information that could be completely wrong. It's, oh, I'm looking at the face of Mars, but it looks like a mask. So what is it really? Is it a mask? And I'm seeing this kind of funny looking mask, but it could be the face on Mars. If you decide it's the face on Mars, but it's really just a mask that's orange colored, but you decide it's the face on Mars, that's
Right.
an medical overlay. So this is, yeah, so it's interesting, but it does work.
I'm
Yeah.
super intrigued about remote viewing and like, but honestly, I think I would have a hard time with that. I like more like Deborah Katz, like her the way she teaches, like
Mhm.
get an image, you actually like don't get stuck on the image, you actually work with it because it's got
Mhm.
energy, right? And then you start like in like asking that energy to give you more
Uh-huh.
information, more
Mhm.
messages.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can do that, and that comes from because her remote viewing class, you do like true remote viewing too. But
Okay.
as part of doing psychic work, learning from remote viewing, what you do is it's called probing. You probe into
Okay.
the thing that you're getting and try and peel it back and get more and more information about the thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
Huh.
people give up too easily. Oh, I got a pretty flower.
And they just stop.
Yeah. Well, what does that mean? Go further into that information and see what that is, because there's more there.
Yeah.
Not, but I think those are our own barriers around getting psychic information and being afraid of being wrong, which is always the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Their own minds get in the way. Big part of it. You got to battle that.
That's the big resistance. I was even
Yes.
telling Lorena in our little pre-chat prepping that, "Hey, I have a big mental block about making market calls because I feel like it's one thing to read like a crypto coin or like a person, but like making those bigger things, it takes a lot of confidence and practice because that's a big thing to put out there. Like, "I see this." Takes practice. Like, you're better at it. You're better at that comfort level with the bigger things.
Yeah. Well, it's a risk.
Yeah.
And you could be wrong. And then people might be mad at you. So,
But, the
you
thing
know,
and I've heard this
that's
over and over, what, only 80%, average of intuitive or psychic calls are correct. Not to put that
correct.
down, but there is a lot of movement within timelines and things change and
Mhm.
energies.
And that I think, and everybody who does psychic work says that it is harder to predict the future because things can change and shift.
Mhm.
And at that moment, that might be correct, but something might come in that you didn't see or wasn't supposed to know about that does come in and influence the situation. And I did a discussion with Deborah Katz about looking at the future and sometimes that we are not. There are just things that we're not supposed to see.
Right. Yeah.
That they're supposed to remain a surprise because it's going to change the thing that is coming. And if you have consciousness about it, there will be a different action or reaction, or you'll get really psyched up about something that you think is coming, whatever. I mean, there's so many different things that could happen when you do receive information. And again, that's all a mind thing, what we do to ourselves in our heads. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and what do you do with that? And she said, oh, she thinks that when that happens, that psychics are just being lazy. And I'm like, no, that is a possibility that it's a lazy psychic or just a psychic that just doesn't feel like they can go there or go further into that thing.
Right.
But I really do believe sometimes we're not supposed to know. Sometimes we're not supposed to know, and it's supposed to be a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some journeys we're meant to take, like,
Yeah.
despite wanting to avoid things.
Yeah. Or get our preconceived notions of what that's supposed to look like involved in the situation. Because
Yeah.
sometimes that can get in the way. Yeah. And it could actually even block something that and make it worse or more difficult. Right?
Mhm.
And pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do have a story around that if you wanna hear that. My
Sure.
sister came, yeah, I mean, this is really personal, but my sister, and this is why I was talking to Deborah about this, was that my sister came to me in a dream and told me my son that I had given up for adoption. No, wait, sorry. She said something big is coming. Something big
Okay.
is the big C. And it was like this really vivid dream, and we had to talk about astrology and something big is coming. And so I ran to my friend Trishna and I'm like, Trishna, what do you think this is? Something big is coming. And she said, the big C is coming, big change. And she said, And she couldn't figure it out. She's like, she
Yeah.
just couldn't see it, and she was really upset that she couldn't see it. Anyway, a couple months later, my son, who I gave up for adoption, came and found me.
Oh,
I mean, that it was huge, and it was like getting run over by an invisible truck. I mean, it was that big of an event in my life. So I
yeah.
got a warning that something was coming, but I didn't get the thing. And I
What it
think
was.
if I would have known that thing, it would have changed it, and I would have been a wreck for 3 months. Okay,
Yeah.
instead of like it just happening and going, "Okay, boom, this is it." So, I don't think I was supposed to know.
Yeah.
I got a warning that something's coming, good warning, but I just could not see it, and that was and I did think a lot about what all the things that it could be.
Yeah.
That never entered my head. I wasn't supposed to know. So sometimes you're just not supposed to know, and it did change my life in a
Mhm.
really good way. It was really hard, parts of it, but it was really good, really good.
Yeah,
So
I don't think you've ever told me that story before. I've
oh,
heard I mean,
yeah, it's a good story, and it's much longer than that. That's the super fast version.
yeah.
Yeah, so some divine warnings in there, just and those things happen, which is thank God. We have help from the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, your energy was probably being prepped for that, I'm sure, in those 3
Mhm.
months, like,
Yeah,
behind the scenes.
yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, and it did, man, it shook me up to the core, but it's yeah, anyway, and it would. Yeah. Anyway, are we anything else we wanna
I was
talk
gonna say, for anybody that hasn't heard well, I mean, I don't know, I can cut this out if you don't want
about?
it,
Okay.
but what I was gonna say for anybody that Lorena has shared a beautiful story on her personal YouTube page, right?
Mhm.
About all this kind
Yeah,
of everything
yeah,
tied to that story. I mean, I literally watched it with my mom and was like bawling because it's
yeah,
the way she elaborates and goes on and opens her heart and lets you into that like painfully healing life journey she had to take around that. It's like I highly recommend you going to her YouTube and watching it.
yeah, yeah, it's called I think it's My Mormon Story. It's
My
called
Mormon story.
My Mormon Story. Yeah. 'Cause a lot of it is centered around being raised Mormon too, so
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and very and hard to tell, but I felt like I should tell it, so because it's beautiful. It's beautiful and it's healing and there's some spiritual amazing spiritual experiences in there too that helped with healing, so it's a cool story. Yeah.
Well, and I think outside of like all of that happened to you, like the amount of the level of forgiveness that you've arrived at is like
Yeah.
we need more of that in life.
Oh, man.
Like that's the what you really anchored in into this incarnation is like if you're able to forgive all that on that life, like in this lifetime, it's like everybody else can, and we
Yeah.
could heal that much trauma. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely the world would be a better place. Yeah. Let it go. Learn to forgive.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, I just said a little PSA for people at home. Find your
Yeah.
healing and your
Yeah.
video.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool story. Yeah.
Mhm. So, and then we were going to talk about claircognizance before.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of claircognizance. What is claircognizance? It's clear knowing. It's knowing. Do you want to talk a little bit about it first? And then I'll dive in.
Yeah, I mean, I've known because of you and the five clairs and claircognizance. I say feeling, clairsentience is my strongest one, but like I was telling Lorena, claircognizance is probably one of the hardest of the clairs to really filter out and trust the guidance and recognize its guidance because we'll often dismiss it. Like,
Mhm.
because it's that knowing. A knowing just comes, but there's no logic to it. It might be contrary to what you're seeing on the surface. So many of us don't trust that part of ourselves, that
Mhm.
right brain part of ourselves. So that's the easiest one to just throw in the bucket. And then we get spanked later
Yeah.
for I knew it. I knew it. For whatever reason that came to me, but I just dismissed it.
And that happens to all of us and has happened to everybody. Yeah, it's just knowing. Sometimes you just know. And now this could be spiritual information, it could be guidance, it could be part of a reading. And sometimes it's so easy, like that information coming in is so easy. It's just like this flow of energy. That's what I mean by easy, that you are not paying attention. You're just like, oh, that's just a voice in my head. But
Yeah.
but it could be really valid information. And so if we could all get better at recognizing when that voice within us, when you just know, like, oh, don't turn left, turn right, or
Yeah.
yeah, don't get on that bus, or it could be anything. It could be anything. And those are, they could be our guides, our angels, our higher self that is giving us this information, and we all receive it. We all
Yeah.
receive it. But that's the hardest part is going, oh, I better do this. It can be a gut feeling. You can feel
Yeah.
it in your gut, you can feel it in your heart, you can feel it in your head. So it comes in different ways because it's a knowing. It is an absolute knowing. Yeah. And we all don't pay enough attention to that. But if you do psychic work, you get better at it.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Or meditation, because sometimes it's a still small voice that's just like, or when I say voice, I mean, it's not, well, maybe it could be a voice, but it's a knowing. There's a knowing within you. Like, don't trust that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, yeah, listen to them. They know what they're talking about. These types of feelings is what claircognizance is. And sometimes downloads, when they talk about downloads, like I downloaded this information, and it can be
Right.
a knowing. And the hard
Mhm.
part about knowing, so you're getting all this information that's coming into your head, but then bringing it out and putting it into words, because it didn't come in words. It came in like information that you
Yeah.
feel that you have to get out. That can be difficult. Yeah. Yeah. It's so there's something you have to intuit sometimes what it means. And that can sometimes that's not that easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's pretty cool when it happens. Do you have any stories around that you recall?
The
Maybe.
only big one that stood out when we were talking right now is back in the day when I lived in my hometown, Chicago. I was working downtown as an executive assistant. And I remember I woke up and I just had this feeling, don't go to work today. I wasn't sick. I really rarely ever called in. I
Mhm.
just woke up and suddenly was like, I don't feel like going. I mean, it was just like, don't go to work today. But it wasn't scary. It was just like, maybe for whatever reason, there's this idea in my head to not go to work. So I called
Mhm.
in and then I fell back asleep for a little bit. When I woke up, I turned on the TV, the Twin Towers were being
Mhm.
hit.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was working downtown Chicago, so I think what happened, if I remember correctly, we're going, God, how far
Mhm.
back, but they evacuated even like the downtown. Like they said, told everybody to go home, and everybody was sent
Mhm.
home just because all the bigger cities were worried about more terror attacks and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, I just whatever I got clear cognizance on that day.
Yeah, that's claircognizance. I have a story around that. Once New York City, and this was we were in the fashion district. But this is when the fashion district is a lot of warehouses. It's a funky area, like 27th Street off of 8th Avenue, something like that. Anyway, so I was hanging out with a friend, and we were at some friend's house, and we had dinner there. They had a beautiful apartment. We had all these wonderful kind of mystical conversations. It was just a really beautiful night. And so me and this friend were leaving, and we got downstairs, and the minute we stepped outside and closed the door, and this was a snowy, cold New York night, winter night, we saw this gang of teenagers. Like the minute they saw us, we knew it's like, oh shit, we are their target. I mean, it was so absolutely obvious that oh, they're like their direction. The minute they saw us, their focus was us, and they
Yeah.
started towards us. And this apartment didn't have an intercom system, so we couldn't buzz the door and say, "Let us back in."
Yeah.
No. So the streets were snow lined, and so we're walking along the sidewalk, and the woman who grew up in Queens, pretty hard edged woman, she said, "Lorina, walk in front of me. Whatever you do, not run, but just walk quickly." I'm like, okay. And the instant I saw them, and we're like, oh shit, I got this, like, I got a vision in my head. Like, the minute that we get to the corner, we're gonna get to the corner, we're gonna flag there's gonna be a cab right there. I'm gonna stick my hand out and we're gonna get in that cab and nothing's gonna happen to us. I absolutely knew, 100% knew that we were gonna be okay and that we were not gonna get attacked by this group of kids. And this was gonna be a bad situation if they did catch up to us. I mean, like, life and death kind of thing or
Oh, man.
brutal hurt, all whatever, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Anyway, and she kept saying, just walking, I'm going, "No, we're gonna be okay, we're gonna be okay. There's gonna be a cab right there, and we're gonna get into it. I just know it." Anyway, and that's exactly what happened. So there was some sort of divine intervention that happened there that we were supposed to be okay. There was supposed to be a cab there, stuck our hand out, and we got in the cab, and we were fine. But I knew 100% that we were gonna be okay. I
Yeah.
just knew. Like, so I wasn't afraid in the sense of, "Oh, no, it was like, "No, this is we gotta be directed. This is important that we get here, but it's gonna happen." So I wasn't afraid like, "Oh, I'm gonna like victim-y kind of thing." It was like, "No, this is a bad situation, but we're gonna get out of it, and it's gonna look like this." And that's what happened. I absolutely knew, 100%. There's no doubt. That's claircognizance. Plus, I saw it in my head too. So it's a combination of so I got
Clairvoyance.
there was clairvoyance and claircognizance happening together at the same time. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
And thank God the timing, the guardian angels, everything had that there for you because
yeah. Yeah. It was a divine intervention happening there. So,
right.
I'm supposed to be here.
We're happy to have you here with us.
Anyway, but if you get good at paying attention,
Yeah.
you'll get that more. Now, that was an unusual situation, but if we're paying attention, that voice inside of us, that clear knowing will get louder and louder so
Yeah.
that we pay more attention. And what will happen is that the part of you that pays attention, that your super conscious or your subconscious will go, "Oh, they're really paying attention. We're going to send more messages." So it actually can have a more of that, please. Like, so yes, she's paying attention. So let's send even more messages. Like the more psychic work you do, it turns it on more because you're paying attention.
Right.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Those voices start to become they're not, but those experiences start to become like more paid attention to, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah. And
more
so we
trust.
develop it develops more of the same. So it gets stronger, which is what we all want.
Yeah. Make it more familiar
Yeah.
or incorporated into your life.
Yeah. So it's really good. It's all good.
Well, alrighty. I guess we wrapped up for the day.
Yeah, I guess yeah, I think we explained it pretty well. There's always more that, can be said, but I can't think of anything right now. Yeah.
For another time, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So pay attention.
Yeah.
Listen.
Trust.
Real.
Trust.
Trust, huge. Just trust. Trust that, those inner knowings. Yeah.
Plus, I'm somebody that believes that this is how we were built to be past those. What are the five senses? Is it five? Like the senses that we have just as a regular human being in the current
Mhm.
collective, the way
Right.
we think things work. But I
Mhm.
really do feel like we were meant to be like telepathic, clairvoyant. Like these things aren't like special. I think they're just either developed or they're already turned on, like because of your consciousness, or maybe you get an ancestry and then your DNA unlocks it. And that's what I believe. It's a personal thing. Like it's not strange to me because this is how we were supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. We're supposed to have this. We're trained to turn it off.
Yeah.
For the most part. That's a generalization, but yeah, we are trained to not listen, but and listen to outside authority. But we all have an inner authority that we need to grow. Yeah.
We need to get home to. That's why I
Yeah.
call myself the homesick clairvoyant.
Yeah.
Like
Like,
we're trying to
yes.
find our way back home.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in the
Home here.
center. Yeah. It's here. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Cool. All right.
yeah,
I think we're done.
I think we are.
Like, subscribe, share, and if you have any ideas of what you want us to talk about or cryptos you want us to read, please let us know. And I think that's it.
Well,
Have a great day.
for personal readings, you just
Yeah.
want to visit our websites.
Yep. We all do that. Yeah. Readings, healings, intuitive work. Yeah. We are available for all of that.
That's
Yeah.
what we do, and that's what we
Yep.
love, and that's why we're here.
All right.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.